Well, violence in Maharashtra again and again started off by objectionable pictures online on Facebook. While the violence has started a legitimate debate on the misuse of social media, the state's Home Minister today warned of action against anyone for even liking something that is deemed a problem on Facebook. Imtiaz Jalil has more.
Violence once again erupting in Maharashtra. This time, the anger triggered by objectionable images on Facebook of Dalit leader Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar. The police immediately blocked the pages, but the violence already taking a heavy toll. 24-year-old Pune techie Mohsin Sadiq Sheikh murdered allegedly by 17 members of the radical outfit Hindu Rashtra Sena. In Aurangabad, 4 people were arrested for circulating these objectionable images on WhatsApp. But the larger unanswered question, who first posted them on Facebook? The suspicion is the same group that posted derogatory photos of Shivaji and late Shiv Sena chief Balasaheb Thackeray.
पण काही समाजकंटक जाती-जातीमध्ये तेढ निर्माण व्हावं, धर्माधर्मामध्ये संघर्ष पेटावेत, ध्रुवीकरण व्हावं म्हणून काही माथे फिरू महापुरुषांची देवतांची बदनामी करणारे मजकूर पोस्ट करतात.
Unless we are given by the cert the IP address of the Facebook from where it has been uploaded, we can't go ahead. And if the person who has used it, if he has used the proxy server, we are nowhere.
Investigations by the Pune police now indicate that the mischief is aimed at creating communal disturbance. But what is making their job all the more difficult is the speed with which these posts are being circulated via WhatsApp and Facebook.
But with elections just a few months away, RJD's Lalu Prasad Yadav raising questions. The BJP meanwhile rubbishing NCP chief Sharad Pawar's claims of communal fever spreading after the NDA returned to power. With Imtiaz Jalil in Pune, Tejas Mehta for NDTV.
Well, the question is whether demands for curbs on social media are then justified. We have Shobha joining us from Mumbai as well on this, but I want to come to Jai Panda first because Jai, you've got a private member's bill on the issue of the IT Act, which you believe is draconian and needs to be modified. Now, here's the problem. You do have people who are misusing social media and genuinely creating trouble, and on the other hand, you do have governments misusing the IT Act as well and going after people for no relevant reason. Where do we find a meeting point?
We must first clarify a confusion or a conflation that many people genuinely make. One is that whether it is online on social media or whether it is outside on the streets, if you are stalking someone, if you are threatening someone with violence, that is unacceptable. Okay? And if you're doing it on social media, you ought to be locked up. But if you are expressing opinions, even if those opinions don't suit a lot of people, then you ought to have the rights of freedom of speech that our constitution guarantees. And this is the conflation that we must separate. Now what is happening is, if somebody is trying to incite a religious riot, whether it's on Facebook, whether it's on the streets, it ought to be treated with seriousness. But if I express political opinions and that is used by the authorities to harass you or to arrest you, that is a violation of fundamental rights guaranteed by our constitution. And section 66A of the IT Act is what enables this misuse by the authorities. My private member's bill had lapsed from the last parliament and I have refiled it today. That needs to be drastically amended.
How do you ensure that things that get onto Facebook or WhatsApp or Twitter don't go out of hand? It's so difficult to do that. And in this country, we've seen that people use that as a reason to stir trouble. So how do you do that?
Well, the freedom of expression in our constitution has been defined by many court orders, by the high courts and by the Supreme Courts. Now, as far as social media is concerned, it is just another medium. Now, if I threaten you right here on this TV channel, in this studio, I ought to be held accountable for it. So, the laws should apply irrespective of whether you are on social media or on television or on newspapers or out on the streets. If you are threatening violence, if you are stalking someone, if you are inciting some kind of a riot, that's different. Now, how you do it is all these social media organizations, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, they all have relevant means of redressing these. Of course, authorities have to monitor them and take redressal action. You can't be arresting people for posting opinions or likes.
Abhishek Singhvi, is that easier said than done in the sense that, you know, when you talk of, when Jai Panda talks about monitoring, the authorities monitoring, now how much can you monitor? That is one part of the problem. The fact that on social media so many people are anonymous, you know, that's another problem. And I also find that a lot of people complain that, you know, even if you complain, there are certain complaints that are taken seriously, others that are not. You know how follow-up action is in this country if you went to the cops. What do we do about this? Because what we're seeing in Maharashtra is clearly something that has to be taken seriously.
And Nidhi, the problem is much more complex. It is not at all capable of a simple solution. The first thing we have to do is to rise above politics. Secondly, there is no doubt that the offence is the same, whether it is committed in person, by print, by television or by social media. If I defame you by any of the means, the defamation is the same. If I do obscenity, it's the same. If I do abuse or incitement of religious feelings, it's the same. But there is a fundamental difference. While the substantive offence is the same, the nature of dissemination and the difficulty of policing or catching or identifying is different. And the spread and the reach is instantaneous in one case and much slower in the other. These peculiar features make it a very serious thing. Now, freedom of speech recognizes its limitations in our constitution itself in Article 19(2). Therefore, defamation is a known exception. Incitement to religious offences is a known exception. You have to, therefore, it's a question of policing, it's not a question of law. It's a question of policing. You have to, unfortunately, act very strictly and quickly when you have incitement, for example, I'm giving an example only, to religious animosity and division. Because one bad post, if I show somebody's God in a different wrongful manner, you know, it leads to loss of several innocent lives, as has happened recently in Maharashtra. Complete bystanders, complete innocent people, bakery owners.
But is it okay if Maharashtra's Home Minister says to go after people who may press like
all over India.
On an allegedly offensive post, or does that take it to the other extreme?
I am saying the nature is the same. Do not think that because you're a social media operator, your right to free speech is more. Do not think that the offence can be less. It's only a question of policing. And unfortunately, the only way sometimes is to take action of arrest.
Jai Panda doesn't agree with you.
Because there is no other option. The consequences are very serious. Therefore, you have to agree with that part of it. No, very serious consequences.
But because Jai says there's a fundamental flaw with the law.
I agree with the principle, but the point is, what the draconian powers that Section 66A gives to the authorities do not have that power if exactly the same comments are made offline. So that has to be amended, but otherwise I agree with the principle that if you are inciting violence, if you are stalking someone, wherever you do it, you ought to face the consequences.
So Shobha Dey, what then needs to change? Because Abhishek Singhvi says rightly that just because you're on social media, that shouldn't make you think that you don't come under the purview of the law of the land. That applies to you as well. But clearly there are things that are said and done on social media that is like an alternate universe. Because it is often a free-for-all where defamatory content is there, but you know, what do people do about it under the garb of anonymity?
Two things that have to be specified. One, it is a very, very complex problem which cannot be resolved very easily, especially social media platforms, which are very, very hard to crack, very hard to catch the culprits in time before the violence actually sets in. Secondly, it's not exclusive to Maharashtra state alone. I mean, this is a problem that's going to be faced in every state of India. It's just that at the moment, Maharashtra seems to be a bit of a tinderbox, what with the elections around the corner, and therefore the fear that these kind of posts will escalate and people will misuse the interpretations of any and every post to incite violence, as we have in fact seen. Now, in the case of Maharashtra and particularly in Pune, we also must give credit to the people of Pune, the citizens of Pune, the Muslim community of Pune, as well as the Pune police, for the kind of restraint that was shown post the absolutely horrific murder of the young techie, a completely innocent bystander. The fact is that the next time it may not be this passive, the reaction could be a lot worse. How does one monitor this? It's very, very hard. How much do you police? How little do you police? These are issues that confront not just people in India but across the world. So social media being what it is a beast Most people there are anonymous beasts. How do you track them? Not even the best cyber cells in the world can possibly prevent something from happening. They cannot preempt something. So we have to think of ways in which to contain this menace.
No, but then it sounds like a pretty helpless situation right now, because we've talked about it in the past when Muzaffarnagar happened, when the Azad Maidan incident happened, when the violence in Assam happened.
And the Northeast students.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Britain had that problem when they had those riots that broke out. So, no, are we just sort of running around in circles on this? I mean, one of the things I remember, I'll ask Nalin this question. I remember
what we're looking at.
Yeah.
What we're looking at really is something that is done subsequently. It happens, it's post the event. It's post the violence having taken place. Now this is the terrible part about these platforms and how swiftly
you can't
can
predict
any
who's going to put what up on any Facebook site.
And how swiftly can they be brought to justice.
No, you can't predict that. But I remember one of the Pandits, when we did this show a couple of years ago, Nalin said that end the anonymous IDs and the anonymous handles. Now, I don't know if that's even possible or whether that's even democratic to do, but that's one of the things that has been proposed.
There's a lot to it, and I think it's far more complex. I mean, what we've discussed so far, of course, each point is valid. But going a little beyond it, there are issues, there's issues of intolerance, and I think we are seeing a lot of it. There's issues of also living dual lives, multiple lives also. You're talking about anonymous, so people are building false IDs, and they build a whole false profile, and they live in that. It's a whole set of issues, and I think, you know, there's no easy solution to it. The larger question is really a social question. It's not just only about law enforcement. The misuse of law is one aspect of it, but even, you know, Section 302, 306, these sections can be misused also. Rape is misused, can be misused, so can dowry, so can even murder. So, you know, the sections can be misused also. So I don't think that itself is a solution only about looking at it from the legal perspective. You can't even overburden a structure. We don't have police, enough policemen to even patrol streets of many cities in that sense, and now we're talking of the social media. So I think what it really goes back to is basically education. And at the base of it is when you're in society, you understand that the right to free speech cannot be the right to take it to an extent of, you know, offense, intrusion, all of this. And this is, I think, a self-built mechanism. It's a long haul. So while you will work on the legal framework, you will work on tightening it, catching the aberrations. You will deal with also the morphed pictures and the morphed sites, which create a whole set of panic. All of that the law enforcement agencies will do. I think at the larger extent, we need to be working on all the other issues too.
Okay, but Kumar Ketkar, Maharashtra's Home Minister today said this is being deliberately done to create tension in the states, in the state of Maharashtra, and that they've identified those who've been, you know, circulating some of these images. Now, here's the problem. There obviously are groups out there that would then use these platforms to deliberately sort of, you know, whip up a frenzy. Do you really believe that that is what is being done in Maharashtra before the elections? I mean, which political group would really benefit from that?
Well, actually, you must have noticed that it is not happening in Kerala, it is not happening in Tamil Nadu, it is not happening even in Karnataka. It has been happening in Maharashtra for quite a few years, almost 3-4 years. But the point is that there are some wicked, pervert groups, individuals, who are putting this on Facebook or WhatsApp. But they are not the people who go and start stoning or arsoning or looting in public, on the street. So there are these two groups. One is the pervert group, maybe of 10 or 12 people or 6 or 7 people. But the second group, which uses that particular Facebook or WhatsApp to create riotous situation, to create communal tension, they are different. So that is the second group. And the third group is only, you know, intolerant Indians who, depending on who is under attack, they defend. Like Hindu Rashtra Sena might, or some of the radical Hindutva or this might defend, okay, what this happened because of that. Somebody might, anti-Dalit or pro-Dalit, will also argue that, okay, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, theek hai, ye ho gaya. So actually there are these three groups. One group is the people who are pervert and putting on Facebook. Second is those who are rioting, and third is who are intolerant Indians. This is happening primarily because there is a huge social disconnect, and that socialization, that communitarization has disappeared, and that's why in that vacuum all this is happening. So I think what is required is that, you know, there were earlier social movements, trade union movements, social organizations, cultural organizations, educational organizations, all that is slowly disappearing under the, you know, invasion of this kind of personal technology. So I think it is, that's what I'm saying, therefore police.
Because
therefore
what you and Nalin Kohli say is essentially the same thing.
No, but Nidhi, I am saying the same thing, that you perhaps may not be able to arrest and apprehend all those people who are perverts and working on Facebook. But you can definitely stop the riotous situations. You know, and everybody doesn't go. 99.999% people are not going for riots. So you know the antisocial elements who use every single opportunity to block roads and create burns and riots. So I think they can be definitely controlled by law and order machinery, even if you can't apprehend and arrest the people who are on the Facebook.
Well, there are two other, points that may come out of this. The first is that when we also give a lot of due importance to those who tend to break the law, say a small group goes out there and suddenly, picks up a particular day or particular event and starts doing a lot, and the media goes out there and starts playing on it. So there are people who derive benefit out of that too. That their whole mission is to really make it to the front line headlines and things like that. So that's one part of it, a little bit of reflection. I think the counter is equally important. If somebody actually has broken the law and has done something like that, you keep going out for the story till the end. You don't just cover the story for the period that the story took place. And the second point is, maybe we need an encouragement, because the social media itself is very large. So if we were to encourage people to actually report abuse and reward them for that, it would be possible. So if I were to get, for example, a terrible message which I feel cannot be true, something seems to be wrong here, and I send out that alert, as you know, it happens sometimes, people do alert authorities and say that if that becomes a little more and you are rewarded for it, I mean, not in terms of only financial but recognition, maybe that's another way out, because it's a long haul.
Well,
there is just no easy.
Turn around and say, "Panka kyun lena hai?" I mean,
but that's the reason.
Yeah,
why people don't report even someone breaking the law, because they are scared, and that's why I think it's a larger question of reform.
But Nalin was here on the show the other day, Shobha, when we were talking about what's happening in Maharashtra, and the fact is that yes, Nalin, you're right, there are often these fringe groups that feed off the publicity that they get from a television channel that's filming, for instance, the kind of vandalism that they do. But it is, for instance, now this Hindu Rashtra Sena, now who the hell knows who they are, but they've created this trouble, they have killed this
Are we talking of it every second day?
But yes, but the point is that they did this to this young man, this innocent young man, Shobha Day, and the question we asked the other day was why political parties across the board, in the sense, have looked the other way while these fringe groups have grown, whether it's the Congress NCP government in Maharashtra and other parties.
Well, Nidhi, I think the explanation is there for all to see, that you keep quiet when it suits you. And what has been said earlier in the program is completely true, that these fringe groups, these radical elements, are feed into the TRP race. They actually summon media people to say, "Aaj inko dikhayenge, aaj unko dikhayenge," and they're performance artists. And the fact that media also plays into it, which of course wasn't the case in Pune, because these were just a group of very nasty people who were roaming around looking for a Muslim boy to attack, a defenseless, helpless Muslim boy, a 24-year-old who had nothing to do with those posts. They were just looking to make a point. They went armed. How can anyone even anticipate that this will happen? These are boys on motorcycles and bikes who are looking for victims. They found another one as well. How are we possibly going to monitor and contain all of this? So these are random groups. The only way one can suggest forward is to come down harshly and heavily on radical groups, perhaps think of banning these kind of organizations and penalizing those who proudly claim that they're members of these fringe groups of that kind. They should be disowned, they should be ostracized, and their political mentors, bosses, or people from same thinking organizations ought to take swift punitive action against people like that, so that a strong message goes out in society.
I think that didn't happen. On the point of the social media though,
and the political class remains silent.
Yeah, that is a big problem. But on the point of the social media, Nalin, last word here tonight. Part of the problem, again I come back to, is the anonymous handles and so on, and the fact that people for some reason on social media think that they can get away with a lot of things.
A lot of people in society, Nidhi, are feeling that they can get away with anything.
No, so then
and I'm coming to that, and that's where the crux, and that's the point I want to make. The crux of it really goes back to police reform and judicial reform. Because at the end of the day, if you have 3 crore plus cases pending, I'll give you an example, just the dishonor of a check. You've got cases in thousands and lakhs in court, so people know it's easy to, just give a check. If it goes to court, it's going to lie there for years, and that's because the courts are overburdened. I mean, high courts have got some, you know, lakhs of it. I mean, you've got 2.65 crore cases in the lower courts, 60 or 6,000 plus cases in the Supreme Court. So it's a bottleneck out there because you've got, so therefore judicial reform
I think it's also
and
a
police
fundamental
reform.
sort of a clash
Why?
between the free speech debate versus,
Not
you
fully.
know,
Because
the need to
you have to respect
have
free
some
speech,
law and order,
but
yes.
at the end of the day, when the law and order machinery is swift, will act without fear, and it's time bound, a lot of questions will start getting solved.
But it also must not act in a
Certainly
frivolous
not.
way either.
Certainly
With
not.
punishing people for Facebook
Certainly
likes, then there may not necessarily be the answer.
Certainly not. The
Mr.
misuse
Ketkar,
of law,
last word
not
to
at
you
all.
tonight.
Yeah, only point is even United States is finding it difficult to apprehend Snowden. Even they are finding it difficult to define freedom of press, freedom of expression and all that.
Yeah.
I think in this particular case, what is happening, it's a law and order problem, getting protection from the so-called freedom of press idea. So I think this is not only a freedom of press question, which is only 20% of it. Some perverts are misusing that, and actually it is a law and order problem, and law and order problem can be tackled by social mobilization and police control.
All right.
I think that's a fair point.
I think a fair point there made by all of you tonight. Thank you very much to you, Nalin Kohli,
Thank you.
Shobha Dey and Kumar Ketkar for joining us, and earlier to Jai Panda and Abhishek Singhvi as well. That's it on the show tonight, but do join us tomorrow. We're going to be kicking off a very important and very significant road safety campaign here on NDTV, and we'll start with left, right and centre. Do join us tomorrow for that at 8 o'clock.